Greetings and salutations. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. I said I would have this video done and dusted for the new year, but I haven't. We're starting it now. It's January 7th for me currently. And I'm gonna start The Lost Hero. I was actually going to wait until next week to start filming this because I don't really have anything going on next week. I could have sat down and just read it in one go over a couple days. But basically yesterday I had a therapy session that was just a lot and it left me feeling very, very emotional. And I've been in a really dark mental health place for a couple of weeks now, which is why this hasn't been done prior to this time. But basically that therapy session just kind of like really threw me off to the point where I had plans today. I cancelled them because I'm not feeling up to leaving the house. And I could really use the Percy Jackson universe right now. I could really use it as a comfort. So I figured I'd start The Lost Hero. I don't know how much I'll read. I'll be honest, this reading vlog might take a little while to film because The Lost Hero always takes me a little while to get through. Also, can we just talk about how fucking ugly the Australian covers of The Lost Hero are? Yeah, The Lost Hero always takes me a little while to get through. Kind of once I get past them leaving camp, it kind of slows for me because while I do really love Jason, Piper, and Leo, I think this is the weakest story with them as characters, and I think this book as a whole is a weaker one. So is Blood of Olympus, but there's Persebeth crumbs in there, so I get through. We'll see how long this takes me. Oh, also, last thing before we get started, I made a pact to show you the bookmarks I'm using. I can't choose between these three. These were my sister's boyfriend's Christmas present to me, and I feel bad because these are much better than I just gave him like a pop vinyl keychain and some chocolates, and these are much better gifts. I don't know which one I want to use. I think I might use Rapunzel because I'm also currently reading a Star Wars book that I can use Leia for. I'll go with Rapunzel because she has my favorite back one. Anyway, let's go. I am literally one page in and I'm already so thrown off by the third person narration. It always catches me off guard for a while. Not me about to cry at Leo showing up. Definitely not that. Oh yeah, he's joking, Leo said. He's trying to get me back for that shaving cream and the jello thing, aren't you? Okay, that gives me war flashbacks. Don't prank people with food like that. Don't do it, because like one time when I was in 5th grade, someone did the thing where they gave me an Oreo with toothpaste in it, and I haven't been able to eat Oreos since then. And I think that that's really upsetting. And I think that we shouldn't do that and ruin foods for people because, God, I wish I could still love Oreos, but I don't trust him anymore. Jason could feel his face burning too. He thought he'd remember if he'd been going out with a girl like Piper. Yeah, you fucking should, Jason. No offense, you should. I know that you literally weren't going out with her, but you should remember going out with a girl like Piper because you're fucking lucky to have Piper McLean. Look at you! The fact that I'm 7 pages into this book and there's been 2 Star Wars references already means that I think I should like this book more than I do. They wore matching jeans and pink tops and enough makeup for a Halloween party. Little comments like that I don't love. Having Piper, the female character that we're meant to like and relate to and admire and whatever the heck, be the one who's not wearing makeup and have the popular mean kind of like snickering group be the ones wearing lots of makeup. Look, I understand it was a different time. I understand that like Rick doesn't still write these tropes in, but this is kind of where we get the idea of Piper being like not like other girls, even though her hatred for femininity is kind of rooted in her relationship with her race. It's where we get these things from, but I don't think that's necessarily Piper's fault. I think that that's the way that Rick is writing, and that's because, you know, these books were like the early 2000s. I think this was literally 2010 or 2011 this was published, so it would have been written late 2000s. I understand that the mentality around it has changed, but I hate little comments like that. I hate the villainizing the hyper feminine traits or things that we think of as being hyper feminine, like wearing lots of makeup. I hate that we see that those are painted in a negative light here. You're a fawn, Jason said. Satyr, Hedge snapped. Fawns are Roman, but we'll talk about that later. The Roman thing may come up again later. Yeah. Someone has come to join us. Hi. Are you going to make reading really difficult for me? Are you going to make it hard for me to read? Yeah. I have a friend now. Annabeth is here. It's the way that she's so frantic and panicked. She knows that the gods know more than they're telling her because she's yelling at the sky and she's yelling, you know, you tricked me, you said he would be here, you said the answer would be here. It's the way that she's so frantic and panicked because she just got Percy. Like, they just kind of got what she thought would be their happy ending, essentially. They had 1 month together, and now he's just gone missing without a trace. Oh, bye, buddy. See, Percy's leaving as they talk about Percy going missing. But it's the fact that she's so upset and frantic and scary because she let herself be comfortable, and then that was just plucked right from her, and now Percy's gone. And he hasn't been gone for very long here, which means that she's... I think she's more frantic here because he hasn't been gone for long and she doesn't have the answer of Jason being there and kind of having an idea that he's safe at another camp, even though he may not remember her. She doesn't have any of that yet. She's just panicked. And it hurts my heart. She's been looking for one of our campers who's been missing for 3 days, which said she's going out of her mind with worry. She hoped he'd be here. Who? Jason asked. Her boyfriend, which said. A guy named Percy Jackson. I can remember the first time I read this and being super, super, like, conflicted, because on the one hand I was like, oh my god, Percy's missing, oh no, and then on the other hand I was like, her boyfriend Percy Jackson. He's returned. Maybe he does love me. Who's to say? There were at least 20 campers milling around. The youngest maybe 9, the oldest college age, 18 or 19. Can some kids at Camp Half-Blood please just live to adulthood? Please. Hello, your local Annabeth Chase Stan would like to talk about Annabeth giving Piper a tour, because again, I've been yelling about this through these reading vlogs, but especially in like fanon and fan fiction and headcanons, Annabeth is painted as this scary person who's really intimidating, and all the campers are scared of her, and she's cold and she's intimidating, and that's not the case. There is a little bit of that when they first meet her, when she first shows up in the Grand Canyon with Jason Leo Piper. And that is because she is emotional and, like, kind of unhinged. Like, she's looking for Percy and she's expecting Percy to be there. And then the disappointment of him not being there is clouding all of her emotions. We see when Annabeth is giving Piper the tour that she is gentle, she is understanding, she is kind. She is really sympathetic with Piper's situation, and she's really, really good at talking to her and explaining it in a gentle way and making sure that Piper doesn't feel judged about any of her past or anything she's done, and just making her feel really at home at camp. And so you can see the difference between her kind of giving Piper this tour versus when she gave Percy a tour around camp in The Lightning Thief, and how she's just gotten better at kind of understanding people and being kinder in her approaches of explaining everything. Not saying she wasn't in The Lightning Thief, but she's more so now as she's gotten older, and it's heavily implied, because we've seen her give multiple campers the welcome tour, that this is something she does in the regular. I just think it is canon that I think, especially with a lot of the younger campers, they probably find great comfort in Annabeth and kind of confiding in her, and I think she's probably great at like giving younger campers pep talks, making them feel comfortable, you know, playing capture the flag, kind of how Luke was to Percy in The Lightning Thief, but if Luke wasn't an actual piece of fucking shit. That kind of thing is how I imagine Annabeth is with younger campers. I don't know why so many people believe she's this intimidating, scary person when she's not. What's in there? Piper asked. Annabeth poked her head inside, then sighed, then closed the curtains. Nothing right now. A friend's place. A friend! I love Rachel and Annabeth being friends. Thank you, Rick. You look ready to drop, Piper said. How long have you been searching for your boyfriend? 3 days, 6 hours, and about 12 minutes. And you've got no idea what happened to him? Annabeth shook her head miserably. We were so excited because we both started winter break early. We met up at camp on Tuesday, figured we had 3 weeks together, and it was going to be great. Then after the campfire, he kissed me goodnight, went back to his cabin, and in the morning he was gone. We searched the whole camp, we contacted his mum. We've tried to reach him every way we know how. And there's nothing. He just disappeared. Piper was thinking, 3 days ago, the same night she'd had her dream. How long were you guys together? Since August, Annabeth said. August 18th. It just hurts me. The fact that she knows the exact amount of time that she's been looking for him. It hurts. Real blades, Piper noted. Isn't that dangerous? That's sort of the point. Annabeth said, sorry, bad pun. That's my cabin over there, number 6. I love her. I fucking love her. Annabeth making bad puns. She's the love of my life. She is everything to me. She simply is my world. She simply is the only character ever in my mind. Annabeth takes supremacy. Piper could see bookshelves, weapon displays, and one of those computerized smartboards they have in classrooms. Fun fact, when I was a kid, it was my absolute fucking dream to like own a smartboard because they were like everything to me. Like there was no greater flex in primary school or elementary school than like being the one to like do the alignment on the smartboards or be able to play games on the smartboard. Like that was the goal, and I wanted one more than anything in the world. Like I straight up, it was the dream. As if Piper doesn't take the shotgun. No offense, but like that's the easiest demigod weapon you could have, I think. Just stay up in a tree and just shoot the monsters. Like there's less of your bronze bullets, so you're not gonna hurt anyone. Why not just kind of go ham, you know? Goddess of marriage. Annabeth's throne was carefully controlled, like she was trying to avoid cursing. She doesn't have kids with anyone but Zeus, so yeah, no demigods. The cabin's just honorary. You don't like her, Piper noticed. We have a long history, Annabeth admitted. I thought we'd made peace, but when Percy disappeared, I got this weird dream vision from her, telling you to come get us, Piper said, but you thought Percy would be there. It's probably better I don't talk about it, Annabeth said. I've got nothing good to say about her right now. I am here for the Hera Hate Club. Fuck yeah. Annabeth was redesigning Olympus after it was damaged in the Titan War. Rachel explained. She's an amazing architect. You should see the salad bar. Anyway, Annabeth said. One, Annabeth being humble about her achievements. She's working on her hubris, and I'm so proud of her, but also, like, her being architect of Olympus is something she should fucking brag about because holy shit. Two, Rachel hyping up Annabeth makes me so happy. Hold up, Leo said. You guys lost a dragon, a real life-size dragon. It's a bronze dragon, Nissa said, but yes, it's a life-size automaton. Hephaestus Carbon built it years ago, then it was lost in the woods until a few summers back when Beckendorf found it in pieces and rebuilt it. I love the mention of Percy Jackson and the Bronze Dragon, my favorite, like, mini-story. Thank you. Yes, appreciate it. I would like to say that Leo's opening chapters were like quite a bit shorter than Piper and Jason's opening chapters, and that feels illegal to me. So Hera is imprisoned, Rachel asked. Who could do that to the Queen of the Gods? Annabeth crossed her arms. Well, whoever they are, maybe we should thank them if they can shut up Hera. Annabeth, Karen warned. She is still one of the Olympians. I love Annabeth so much. Annabeth nodded. Percy went there once. He told me it was powerful enough to wipe the mind of a Titan. I love mentions of Bob. Literally tell me why just reading about Clovis yawning all the time is making me sleepy. It's making me more tired. What is this? The way in which I can't read the words Big Sir without having my dumb little past Kayla brain yell at me. That's why she turned down the fancy clothes Dad always offered, the designer clothes, the trips to the salon. She cut her own hair with a pair of plastic Garfield safety scissors, deliberately making it uneven. She preferred to wear beat-up running shoes, jeans, a t-shirt, and her old polo tag jacket from the time they went snowboarding. Here's the thing. This is why I kind of hate why the fandom calls out Piper specifically, especially for being, like, not like other girls, because she is in a lot of ways. The reality is she is. So is Annabeth, so is a lot of Rick's female characters early on. That's kind of how he wrote women. But the justification that we literally get in canon for Piper from the moment we meet her for why she's not like other girls is because of, like, personal reasons. She's doing it not because she hates femininity. She's doing it because of her relationship with her race and because of her relationship with her dad and with her own privilege. She doesn't like the option of her basically having access to all the best things, to all the best salons and all the fanciest clothes, and you know, she doesn't like any of that, and as an act of rebellion against her own privilege, that's why she's not like other girls. And I just think people miss that. I hope it's Athena. She looked up, afraid Rachel might make fun of her, but the Oracle just smiled. Piper, I don't blame you. Truthfully, I think Annabeth was hoping that too. That has the same energy as, like, when I was, like, 10 years old and had crushes on girls and didn't realize it and just wanted to be, like, their best friends, just around them all the time. Jason's just currently, like, chanting the prophecy in Latin, and just as, like, I read foes bear arms to the doors of death, my framed picture of Chris and Kristen, like, one of them, I have multiple, just fell and, like, banged, and the timing of that gave me a fucking heart attack. And the fact that I have like 1,000 framed photos in my room and it was the one of like Percy and Annabeth. It'll be dangerous, Nessa warned him. Hardship, monsters, terrible suffering. Possibly none of you will come back alive. Oh. Suddenly Leo didn't look so excited. Then he remembered everyone was watching. I mean, oh, cool, suffering. I love suffering. Let's do this. I love him. I love he. It is so funny to me that on his first day at camp, Jason essentially just blurted out that Piper was hot in front of the whole camp. Bit of a mood, if I'm honest. Hello, the lighting right now is terrible, but I am going to read just like a quick chapter. I don't really have much time to read right now, hence why I'm not bothering to get a better setup for right now, but I need the distraction, so let's go. Hera putting Leo through like actual dangerous trials to see if he's her brave little hero, even though he could legitimately die in them. I just think that Hera should perish and die, to be honest, and like I think that that's valid. I think that we shouldn't be saving her in this story. See, honest to God, like with Gaia, is that how you say it? I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name, but I pronounce it Gaia. But like Gaia is set up as this terrifying villain here a little bit, like what she does to Leo's mum and stuff because she can't actually touch Leo yet. That's terrifying, and that's setting up a brilliant villain. But that gets completely thrown away because I think that Gaia is like a completely useless villain who never felt like she was even a real threat. She feels like she's set up well and set up to be really scary here, and then she's just not when we actually get to her like rising or whatever. Leo rebuilding Festus and like naming him and stuff. Oh, it gives me so much serotonin. It gives me so much serotonin. Leo just being like perfectly balanced. The Thanos energy. First of all, I think Jason has one of the most interesting backstories in the entirety of the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles. Him being raised at the Wolf House is really fucking interesting, and I wish that we kind of knew more about that and that was fleshed out more. I think it would be really interesting if one of the standalone books Rick decided to write would be about that. I don't think he will, because I think he's, you know, kind of very done with Jason's character, but I think that would be a really, really interesting standalone series that would just completely expand the world. Also would like to point out, you know, those people like in middle school, I don't know if this was just like an Australian thing. I think this was a worldwide thing, surely it was, but you know how there was horse girls, you know, the horse girls, we talk about them a lot. I feel like we don't talk enough about the wolf girls, the people in middle school that were obsessed with wolves, because Jason Grace is one of those people. Jason Grace is a wolf girl. The fact that it's always thundering in cabin 1 kind of sounds like heaven to me. Maybe I want to be in cabin 1. Fucking hate Zeus and would actually hate to be in cabin 1. It always thundering, kind of appealing. Jason walked over. Whoever had slept there, it had been a long time ago. The bedroll smelled musty. The backpack was covered with a thin film of dust. Some of the photos once taped to the wall had lost their stickiness and fallen to the floor. One picture showed Annabeth, much younger, maybe 8, but Jason could tell it was her. Same blonde hair and grey eyes, same distracted look like she was thinking a million things at once. She stood next to a sandy-haired guy about 14 or 15, with a mischievous smile and ragged leather armor over a t-shirt. He was pointing to an alley behind them, like he was telling the photographer, "Let's go meet things in a dark alley and kill them." A second photo showed Annabeth and the same guy sitting at a campfire, laughing hysterically. It's the fact that they were literally family. It just hurts. "Who's the other kid in the photo?" he asked, the sandy-haired guy. Annabeth's expression tightened, touchy subject. "That's Luke," she said. "He's dead now." Jason decided it was best not to ask more, but the way Annabeth said Luke's name, he wondered if maybe Percy Jackson wasn't the only boy Annabeth had ever liked. It upsets me because, once again, Luke was horrible to Annabeth. Luke was abusive, emotionally manipulative, horrible to Annabeth. Yet, because he was labelled a hero when he died, Annabeth never was really given the luxury of understanding how horrible Luke was to her, because he's a good guy in everyone else's eyes because he died for the right causes and stuff, and she's constantly hearing about how he's in Elysium and he's a hero, which means that she's still 16 here. She doesn't have the emotional capability, and she's not given the emotional capability to really think about what Luke put her through and understand that Luke isn't a good person and understand the weight of what Luke put her through. She's not given that luxury because she's 16 and everyone is saying that he was this amazing hero, and she's going to believe them because she used to think that too, and now everyone's saying that how she used to feel about him was correct. It just makes me upset. I completely forgot that Jason told Annabeth that he, you know, is Thalia's brother here. I don't know why. I remember this conversation. I remember him being like, you know, the girl in the pictures, that's my sister. For some reason, I thought that was at the end of this book when they get back from the quest. Don't ask me why, but that's the timeline that my brain came up with since I last reread this book, which was like 3 years ago now. Okay, but I really do hate the way that the Aphrodite cabin is written. Like I know that it's based off of Aphrodite herself, and like Rick's parodied version of her, but and I know that there are exceptions to the rule, but I don't like that the majority of the cabin are seen as like weak, or that they don't care about the camp or the war or the stakes of being demigods. All they care about is makeup, and they're really vain because they care about their appearance and because they care about a fashion and makeup that makes them vain and selfish and weak, and I hate that. I really fucking hate that. And I know that Piper's character kind of exists as a destruction of that idea of a daughter of Aphrodite or a kid of Aphrodite. She exists to get rid of that stereotype, but at the same time she only gets rid of that stereotype by like not being a typical Aphrodite kid. It would have been more powerful to have had an arc like that with a character like Selena, or a character that is really through and through Aphrodite, stereotypical Aphrodite kid. It would have been more powerful to show that, like, hey, the Aphrodite cabin is all right, with a character who fit the mold of an Aphrodite kid more so. I really like Piper and I love what Piper's character stands for, but I think that if Rick was planning to give the Aphrodite cabin some, I guess, credit, he probably should have done it with a character who isn't, you know, so against Aphrodite. So that's why she's head counselor, Piper said. She convinced you all. Mitchell picked off a nasty wad of gum from under Piper's bed. Nah, she inherited the post when Selena Beauregard died in the war. Drew was second oldest. Oldest camper automatically gets the post unless somebody with more years or more completed quests wants to challenge, in which case there's a duel, but that hardly ever happens. If I'm not mistaken, Annabeth was head counselor of the Athena cabin in The Lightning Thief, which implies that there was probably like a 17-year-old Athena cabin leader who was like the oldest one there, and fucking like 11 or 12-year-old Annabeth challenged them for the post. She could have been younger, and won, and I love that thought. But anyways, Selena lost track of what this cabin is about. We match up cute couples at camp, then we break them apart and start over. It's the most fun ever. You don't have any business getting involved in other stuff like wars and quests. I certainly haven't been in any quests. They're a waste of time. That sounds to me like Drew has some trauma from the war. It's astounding to me a little bit how much the fandom is quick to jump to defend Annabeth specifically about her being a bitch to Rachel specifically, because, and you know, and I'm one of these people, she only does it because of her trauma. She only does it as a coping mechanism. Wonderful. As soon as any other female character shows those same traits, like Drew being a massive bitch, not defending that, like I don't defend Annabeth being a bitch, but sounds to me like she's got some serious trauma, having been through a war and actually losing a head counselor who she probably looked up to a lot, as a person who was literally her sibling, and then having to lead the cabin immediately after. That's some fucking trauma, and it sounds like the way that she's running the cabin and just ignoring quests and the wars and all of that is a coping mechanism. And I just think that it's time that the fandom starts to apply the same sympathy that they do to Annabeth to other female characters, because they don't apply it to Drew, they don't apply it to Hazel, they don't apply it to Rachel, they don't apply it to fucking anyone. But we should. Go, Annabeth said. She was the only one who didn't look nervous at all. Her expression was sad and wistful, like this reminded her of better times. The way in which Annabeth loves Percy so much that going on quests is better times in her brain than being like safe at camp without him there. Ah! Shut up, me, Leo said aloud. What? Piper asked. Nothing, he said. Long night. I think I'm hallucinating. It's cool. That's literally me when my insomnia really kicks in and I don't sleep for like 2 days straight and I'm just like, I don't really know what's going on. His body was shaking, and not from the cold. Elsa in the first line of Throw Yourself. The way that Festus kind of like folds into a shape that's described to be like the size of a suitcase, just like in my head, it's like the scene in Iron Man 2 where like Tony has like the briefcase that turns into the suit but in reverse, so it's like dragon briefcase. Hello, new day, time to read, but also look at my Mando builder there. I now have a Dinjarin to protect my Grogu's. I was able to afford this guy because people on stream like literally made donations to make sure that I was able to get him, which thinking about that makes me want to cry because I do not deserve the audience I have. I do not deserve the kindness that they show me, but it's insane. Also, look at this. Jason worried that he'd led his friends into a trap. If things went bad, he wasn't sure he could get them out alive. Without thinking about it, he took Piper's hand for reassurance. She raised her eyebrows, but she didn't let go. I have mixed feelings about this because on the one hand, I'm like, buddy, please be careful that you're not toying with her emotions because she has a whole relationship with you in her head and you don't remember any of that. And like, it's very, very tricky. It's very tricky to navigate that and navigate what is and isn't leading her on, and you really don't want to lead her on in any way. However, Jason's holding her hands for the same reason that like Annabeth grabbed Percy's hand in The Lightning Thief when they were going into the underworld, and it's just the reassurance of having like someone that you trust, someone human there with you. So I understand it, but at the same time, my protective ass is like, oh, careful. Still, Thalia looked so familiar. Hera had left him just enough memory for him to be certain Thalia was his sister. But Annabeth had acted completely surprised when he told her, like she'd never heard of Thalia having a brother. Did Thalia even know about him? How had they been separated? Hera had taken those memories. She'd stolen everything from Jason's past, plopped him into a new life, and now she expected him to save her from some prison just so he could get back what she had taken. It made Jason so angry he wanted to walk away and let Hera rot in that cage, but he couldn't. He was hooked. He had to know more, and that made him even more resentful. I fucking think you should let her rot in that cage, buddy. I think you should. All your reasoning's very valid. I think you should. He was sure now that they'd never known each other before the Grand Canyon. Their relationship was just a trick of the mist in Piper's mind. But the longer he spent with her, the more he wished it had been real. You're not special, buddy. We all wish we were in a relationship with Piper McLean. Jason would have botched it right there. He hadn't been expecting to get the chance to talk, and now that he could, his voice abandoned him. Piper saved him. Yeah, because Piper's a superior fucking character here. I love you, Jason, but a little bit useless for a bit here, aren't ya? As Keone led them down the stairs. By the way, I don't know if Keone is the right way to pronounce it. I don't know how to say Greek things. That's just what I'm saying. As Keone led them down the stairs, Jason noticed that Leo's eyes followed her. Leo started combing his hair back with his hands. Uh-oh, Jason thought. He made a mental note to warn Leo about the snow goddess later. She was not someone to get a crush on. Bold of you to think that will stop me. I've still got a crush on her, Jason. Bold of you to think you can stop my gay. Somewhere above her, Jason yelled, Piper, level out! Extend your arms and legs! It was hard to control her fear, but she did what he said and regained some balance. I can't control their fear, only my own. Just gonna shove Vision through some levels of a building. If you get my jokes, they're like references to all the fandoms. I love you. Leo started to ask, you okay? Then he saw her foot. Oh, no, you're not. Leo's the kind of friend that I would want to have around. I'd rather someone would be like, that looks bad. You're not in good shape, than someone being like, it's fine, you're gonna be fine. I'd rather someone be blunt with me. I want to know the reality of it, I think. If I'm gonna be injured, tell me the reality of how bad it is. Yeah, you're just shaken up, Leo agreed. He didn't even try to make a joke at her expense. You're in pain, just rest. I love Leo Valdez so much. I love him so much. He's such a good friend, I don't give a fuck. Getting frozen out, story of his life, by his relatives, foster homes, you name it. Even at wilderness school, Leo had spent the last few weeks feeling like a third wheel as Jason and Piper, his only friends, became a couple. He was happy for them and all, but still it made him feel like they didn't need him anymore. When he found out that Jason's whole time at school had been an illusion, a kind of memory burp, Leo had been secretly excited. It was a chance for a reset. Now Jason and Piper were heading towards being a couple again. That was obvious from the way they'd acted in the warehouse just now. Like they wanted to talk in private without Leo around. What had he expected? He'd wind up the odd man out again. He only had just given him the cold shoulder a little quicker than most. See, this is why I really fucking wish that Leo's character arc didn't just end with him getting into a relationship, because this is something that I can really, really relate to, especially in high school. It felt like all of my friends were getting into relationships and I was the odd man out. I was the one getting left behind. I was the one getting frozen out by everyone having these experiences and me not relating to that. And I think it would have been really, really powerful had Rick decided that the end to Leo's character arc is him realizing that he himself is enough, that he can have a place in a group, even if he's not in a relationship and other people are. He doesn't have to be the third wheel. He can fit into these dynamics perfectly alone, just as he is, and have him being himself and accepting himself and appreciating himself be completely enough. I think that would have been a much more powerful arc for Leo than him getting into a relationship, especially considering that Leo's relationship we see in Trials of Apollo gets really toxic really fast, yet Leo doesn't really realize that because he's just so desperate for that feeling of being wanted because he's a teenager. But like, still, I wish that Leo's arc went in a different way. We officially have the very first time Jason Grace is knocked out for a fight. I would just like to point out that Leo Valdez is legitimately like a fiercely, fiercely powerful demigod, and people often don't actually talk about how powerful he is. A lot of people only ever really regard him as the comedic relief rather than someone with some serious power on their side, and it just we should talk about it. How did the Cyclops? Leo ripped them apart. Piper said he was amazing. He can summon fire. It was nothing, Leo said quickly. Piper laughed. Shut up, Valdez, I'm going to tell him, get over it. Pico being appreciated, I love to see it. It didn't exactly scare him to hear how close it come to death, but it did make him feel horrible. He stepped right into an ambush and spent the whole fight knocked out while his friends fended for themselves. What kind of quest leader was he? I mean, he said it, not me. If you are to die, Hera had warned, it will be by her hand. Is that Trials of Apollo foreshadowing, or am I reaching? I think I know who I might not be thinking of the right person that Hera is specifically referring to, but I assume I am. And I've never made that connection before, if I'm right. I love all the references to Pepper being a vegetarian. One, we just love to see it, but also, if I have anyone watching this who like knows me from my like Annabeth cosplay stuff and also happens to be a Piper cosplayer, can you please make a video in Piper cosplay to tell your boyfriend if he says he's got beef that I'm a vegetarian and I ain't fucking scared of him, so that I can do it in Annabeth cosplay, because I think that's the most Piper Beth lyric to ever exist, and every time there's a mention of Piper being a vegetarian, all I think about is that lyric. This one will heal any disease, even cancer, Leo asked, leprosy, hangnails, any disease, sweet boy. And this vial, she pointed to a swan-shaped container with blue liquid inside, will kill you very painfully. Awesome, Jason said. I can't be mad at them because charm speak would work on me, but oh, it's frustrating. It is a little bit interesting that really it seems pretty much everywhere that Leo, Jason, Piper are going on this quest, anywhere that previous demigods have been, there is a lot of evidence of the Romans, of Camp Jupiter, whether it be the purple shirts being there, or Roman armor, or a toga, or just the gods mentioning something Roman. And it is a little interesting that like that's just not present in the first series, and I realize that, you know, that's because Rick wasn't planning it, but having so much Roman stuff pop up immediately in this book makes it seem kind of interesting. We're like, there should have been some hints to it earlier, realistically. I genuinely think this chapter is the best part of the Lost Hero, seeing how powerful charm speak is. Not only sets up how important Piper is as a main player in the Seven, and really sets up kind of where we hope to see her end up with her own charm speak and how powerful she can become. It's also great to see kind of how easily manipulated Jason and Leo particularly are at this point in time, and Jason kind of remains it a little bit, I suppose, when we get to Mark of Athena, and how easy it is to turn people against each other and to show how powerful charm speak is as a power. I just think it's a really, really interesting time. It's probably the most tense moment in this novel. It's my personal favorite, and it's really good to look back on now, knowing where we see Piper end up in terms of her own power with charm speak, and this particular standoff between the two was really fun to look back on post Trials of Apollo. Piper didn't dare look, not while she was running with a dagger in her hand. She could just see herself tripping and stabbing herself in the nose. That would be super heroic. Fucking mood, also she's the love of my life. Hephaestus, I think, is probably one of the best Olympian parents. Like, no, he literally is. I know that he keeps a special eye on Leo, and he maybe doesn't show all his kids the same amount of attention, but I think because he was such an outcast on Olympus, really does care about his kids, and I think that differs. He's not only paying attention because Percy told him to pay his child support or whatever, like, he actually cares about his children and wants to check in on them and see them do well. And I think if you were going to get stuck with a godly parent, he wouldn't be the worst. Why is Zeus being such a jerk? He excels at that, boy. You can say that again. And to have Jackson refuse our gift as if being mortal was somehow better than being a god, well, that stuck in Zeus's craw. He decided it was high time we got back to traditional values. Gods were to be respected, our children were to be seen and not visited. Olympus was closed. At least that was part of his reasoning. Zeus is a fucking prick. And, see, this is why I hate it when, like, you know, people act as if Percy should have done more when he was confronting the gods. Like, no, the gods are just fucking dicks, and they didn't want to change anyway. They didn't even want to listen to the, like, one thing Percy asked of them. Percy was completely in the right. The people who are in the wrong are the gods. Oh my god, I sound like Lucas Fallon. Just one thwack? No, Piper said. What about a compromise? I'll kill them first, and if it turns out they were friendly, I'll apologize. No, Piper insisted. I love Coach Hedge. It's always just a pleasure to have him around. Like, I do get a little bit frustrated with him sometimes. Sometimes I think he can be a bit too much of comedic relief. And I know that we do eventually see a more emotional side to him, but I think we could have used having seen that a bit more, but most of the time Coach Hedge is just really fun to have around, even if he gets on my nerves a little bit. Honestly, this is like the one time that we actually see Jason kind of like really succeed in a fight in this novel that I can recall. I may be wrong, there may be another time toward the end. My memory for the last year is a little bit hazy, but this is the only time I really recall Jason, at least without major help from Leo and Piper, really like taking charge and being a badass. And it's interesting to see him work so well under the panic of losing Piper and Leo first, and him really having to be like, all right, I'm all I've got, what can I do right now? But he does outsmart King Midas a little bit too easy for my taste. It's very, very quick for him to just be like, oh, help him up, and Midas is like, cool, I will. Like, I don't know, I feel like that was a bit too easy. It's another day again, and it's a bad brain day, so I really need this world at the second. Let's go. Thanks, Piper said weakly. How did you beat Midas? Jason told her the story, putting most of it down to luck. The coach nodded. Kid's being modest. You should have seen him. Yeah, slice, boom, with the lightning. I do love to see kind of Coach hyping up Jason a little bit because, again, I give Jason a lot of shit just because I think it's fun. But he is really powerful, and that is a great moment where we actually get to see Jason using his powers and taking charge of the situation and kind of it's the first time we really see why he's such a big deal, and we see his powers as the son of Jupiter. And I think that it's nice to see Coach Hedge kind of being like, stop being modest, you were fucking cool there. I don't know, I like to see it. Do we look that bad? Piper shivered. Nah, Jason said. You're a terrible liar. She said, when they're Captain America and Natasha Romanoff. She couldn't meet her friend's eyes. She waited for them to yell at her or turn their backs or kick her out into the snowstorm. Instead, Jason scooted next to her and put his arm around her again. God, Piper, I'm so sorry. Leo nodded. No kidding. You've been carrying this around for a week? Piper, we could help you. She glared at them. Why don't you yell at me or something? I was ordered to kill you. Oh, come on, Jason said. You saved us both on this quest. I'd put my life in your hands any day. Same, Leo said. Can I have a hug too? I love them. I love this trio so much. I really think the friendship and the bond between these three is really, really overlooked by the fandom. Not quite as much as like Percy, Hazel, Frank, but like definitely a lot. We kind of only ever think of Jason and Piper in regards to them as a ship. We don't really think of the trio as a trio, and we don't talk about that friendship anywhere near, you know, the same amount that we talk about Percy, Annabeth, Grover or anything. And I think that's really upsetting because I love the dynamic between these three, and I love the bond. I love the exploration of kind of, I think Piper is what brings them all together for a large part. Leo and Piper's bond, and the fact that Leo and Piper's friendship has been real the whole time, and then Jason he really forms a really strong friendship with Leo from here on out, but for a while Jason's mostly interacting with Piper, and he's trying to figure out his feelings for Piper. And so Piper is what kind of ties through them together, and Jason and Leo's, they have a rocky relationship with each other a lot of the time, but their shared love for Piper kind of gets them through and makes them work, and I just think it's a really interesting dynamic. Hedge took another bite of paper and bagged up. Well, Kronos built a new palace there last summer, big nasty place. It's going to be the headquarters for his new kingdom and all. Weren't any battles there though. Kronos marched on Manhattan, tried to take Olympus. If I remember right, he left some other titans in charge of his palace, but after Kronos got defeated in Manhattan, the whole palace just crumbled on its own. No, Jason said. Everyone looked at him. What do you mean no? Leo asked. That's not what happened. He tensed, looking towards the cave entrance. I love knowing that, like, the Romans were doing something. An explanation for, like, yes, Jason was doing something during the Titan War. They weren't just fucking around. Like, they were participating. It's cool to read. Jason glanced over his shoulder. Coach, you know this clown? There is something about Jason Grace calling someone a clown that is so personal to me. The flames began to sputter out. Jason cursed and dropped his sword. He crouched like he was ready to go hand to hand. Leo pulled his hammer out of his pack. Piper raised her dagger. Not much, but it was all she had. I love her. Coach Hedge hefted his club, and he was the only one who looked excited about dying. Then a ripping sound cut through the wind, like a piece of tearing cardboard. A long stick sprouted from the neck of the nearest wolf. The shaft of the silver arrow. The wolf writhed and fell, melting into a puddle of shadow there. Do I know you? Thalia asked. Piper took a breath. This might be a shock, but Thalia, Jason stepped forward, his voice trembling. I'm Jason, your brother. Could you imagine being Thalia and, like, you think your brother has been dead for, like, almost your entire life. In that time period, you've turned into a tree, you've gone through some shit. Then he just shows up, he's, like, a full-grown teenager that kind of looks your age because you're immortal now. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot to have happen and process in your head. If that wasn't bad enough, Leo fell in love with every girl he saw, as long as she was totally out of his league. I fucking felt that, dude. For a minute, Jason and Thalia faced each other stunned. Then Thalia rushed forward and hugged him. My god, she told me you were dead. She gripped Jason's face and seemed to be examining everything about it. Thank Artemis, it is you. That little scar on your lip. You tried to eat a stapler when you were 2. I love Jason Grace. But Leo knew when they weren't wanted. Come on, Hedge, these two need time to talk. Fine. The sailor muttered. Don't even get to brain anybody. Hedge carried Piper towards the entrance. Leo was about to follow when Jason called. Actually, man, could you stick around? See the friendship between, like, Jason and Leo developing and becoming something more solid. I love to see it. It is also very odd to me that we get this chapter. We get kind of like Jason and Thalia reconciling through Leo's perspective. It was an interesting decision. He felt bad for Jason, not having memories like that, not having anything to fall back on. So Jason didn't seem able to finish the question. Jason, you've got friends, Leo told him. Now you've got a sister. You're not alone. Oh, please, Thalia smiled and helped him up. I haven't had a brother in years. I think I can stand a few minutes with you before you get annoying. I love them. Also, that really fucking hurts looking back at it, doesn't it? Oh, I'm in pain. The emotional pain I am in. Oh god, Thalia said. Keep moving. Look at your feet. Leo shuffled backwards. With horror, he realized his body temperature really was rising, just as it had years ago at that picnic table under the pecan tree when his anger got away from him. Now, excitement was causing the reaction. His trousers steamed in the cold air. His shoes were literally smoking, and the bridge didn't like it. The ice was thinning. Leo, stop it, Jason warned. You're going to melt it. I'll try. The fact that Leo just spontaneously catches on fire sometimes is... I don't know. I just love it. Just listen, Leo insisted. If Jason is a bridge, what's he connecting? Maybe 2 different places that normally don't get along, like the air palace and the ground. You had to be somewhere before this, right? And Hera said you were in exchange. On exchange, Talia's eyes widened. Oh, gods. Jason frowned. What are you two talking about? Thalia murmured something like a prayer. I understand now why Artemis sent me here. Jason, she told me to hunt for Lycaon and I would find a clue about Percy. You are the clue. Artemis wanted us to meet so I could hear your story. Like, Leo and Thalia working together to figure this out just... it speaks to me. Melly is here. Piper gripped his hand and followed him. If I fall, you're catching me. Sure. Jason hoped he wasn't blushing. Leo stepped out next. You're catching me too, Superman, but I ain't holding your hand. I love them so much. Then Jason realized the Windlord was listening to voices in his earpiece. Well, Zeus approves. He says it would be better if he could avoid saving her until after the weekend because he has a big party planned. Ow! That's Aphrodite yelling at him, reminding him that Zeus starts at dawn. She says I should help you. I know Zeus is a piece of shit, but also valid. I would also kind of want Hera gone if I was like, I would be living it up a little bit if Hera was missing. And if she is waking by all the gods, she cannot be denied. Goodbye, heroes. Here's the thing, is like, even Kronos wasn't set up this much from the get-go. We didn't really have like Kronos be, we weren't 100% sure that it was Kronos who was rising really until the end of the Lightning Thief Sea of Monsters. And having Gaia and like her being awoken be set up so early on and be so important from like the start of book 1 of the series means that really she should feel like a massive fucking threat, and it should be a real difficulty to stop her from rising, to stop her from waking up, and it's not. For all I know, when I reread Blood of Olympus, it'll be far better than I remember it, but like the writing in itself might be a lot better than I remember, but in my head I always think of it as the weakest book from this series and one of Rick's weaker books out of any series, because it's just so anticlimactic, like Breaking Dawn, and it leaves it it doesn't feel like a satisfying ending. I'm interested to see how I feel about Blood of Olympus this time, because I haven't read it for about 3 years now. Piper laughed uneasily. You can't look anything but perfect. You're sweet, Aphrodite said. But beauty is about finding the right fit, the most natural fit. To be perfect, you have to feel perfect about yourself. Avoid trying to be something you're not. I actually love the sentiment of that a little bit. Waitress has called 6 double espressos and whatever these guys want. Put it on the girls tab. He is me. Maybe I'm a satyr. Maybe I'm a satyr and that explains my caffeine addiction. Leo looked at the construction equipment and got a crazy idea. He brought out the little toy he'd made in the climb, and he realised what it could do. If he was lucky, which he almost never was. Let's boogie, he said, before I come to my senses. Begin next chapter. The plan went wrong almost immediately. I love these books. Leo's biggest surprise? One look from Jason and all 3 of them knew the game plan. When had that happened that they could read each other so well? I love a trio! He burst into flames, yelled Hephaestus, and charged at the ogre barehanded. He never got there. A blur of turquoise and black flashed behind the ogre. A gleaming bronze blade sliced up one side of the Earthborn and down the other. 6 large arms dropped to the ground, boulders rolling out of their useless hands. The Earthborn looked down, very surprised. He mumbled, "Arms go bye-bye?" Then he melted into the ground. Piper stood there, breathing hard, her dagger covered with clay. Her day sat at the ridge, dazed and wounded, but still alive. Piper's expression was ferocious, almost crazy, like a cornered animal. Leo was glad she was on his side. "Nobody hurts my friends," she said, and with a sudden warm feeling, Leo realized she was talking about him. I love Piper McLean so much! So much. Jason had felt a similar way that morning at the Grand Canyon when he woke with her memory, but Mr. McLean had the opposite problem. He had too many memories, too much trauma his mind just couldn't handle, and he was coming apart. Maybe I get interested in McLean. I didn't remember the exchange between Piper and her dad after they saved him being this emotional, but it's really getting to me. Hey, don't worry, Leo said. Piper, you're the strongest, most powerful beauty queen I've ever met. You can trust yourself. For what it's worth, you can trust me too. Leo Valdez and Piper McLean's friendship is literally so personal to me. I don't know what it is about that specific bond, but it's one of my absolute favourite friendships in the entire ride and verse. Like, there's something about the relationship between the 2 of them, and the fact that it's purely platonic as well. Like, it's not ever really a ship, it's not ever hinted at that there's anything romantic at any point from either of them, and I just love that it's this really, really strong platonic friendship between a female character and a male character, because that's rarer than it should be. It's just there's something so wholesome about that bond, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that they actually were friends at Wilderness School. Like, the 2 of them being friends wasn't a trick of the mist. There's an established friendship there that was real, and I just love them. Thalia stepped next to him and looked at the cage with distaste. Maybe she was looking at the goddess. We tried everything we could think of, Leo, but maybe my heart wasn't in it. If it were up to me, I'd just leave her in there. Fucking same, Thalia. Fucking same. Jason Grace just not closing his eyes, even when Hera is literally like, everyone close your eyes, and he still doesn't do it. It still doesn't click for him. Look, I love the himbo, but I would very much so like to have an actual conversation about the fact that Piper literally spoke Jason back to life. Would like to talk about that more, please. But sure, then, Piper said cheerfully. If you don't want to wait until noon, now is fine. You've turned this cabin into a dictatorship, Drew. Selena Beauregard knew better than that. Aphrodite is about love and beauty. Being, loving, spreading beauty. Good friends, good times, good deeds. Not just looking good. Selena made mistakes, but in the end she stood by her friends. That's why she was a hero. I'm going to set things right, and I've got a feeling Mum will be on my side. Want to find out? She went cross-eyed, looking down the blade of Piper's dagger. A second passed, then two. Piper didn't care. She was absolutely happy and confident, and it must have shown in her smile. I stepped down, Drew grumbled, but if you think I'm ever going to forget this, McLean, oh, I hope you won't, Piper said. I am in love with Piper McLean. But most of the office's wall space was plastered with photos of demigods, like a hall of fame. One of the newer shots showed a teenage guy with dark hair and green eyes. Since he stood arm in arm with Annabeth, that Piper assumes the guy must be Percy Jackson. It's so wild how much you can feel Percy's absence in this book. Annabeth's too, even though she's here for quite a bit. Percy's absence is so tangible and you really feel it, and I think that's largely why this book usually takes me so much longer to read, because I don't dislike this book. It's probably one of my least favorites from Heroes of Olympus. When ranking, it would be my second to least favorite. Blood of Olympus was worse, and I stand by that. But it's the absence of Percy that's so alien, and it's upsetting. It's hard to read about this world without Percy in it. It doesn't feel right. His absence is really missed, and you can feel it. For anyone who doesn't know, and I don't really know why this is, but one of my weaknesses in fiction is like father children relationships and really good father child relationships or father figure relationships. But that's why I love Peter and Tony, or Hopper and Eleven, stuff like that. And this moment of just the phone call between Piper and her dad is getting to me quite a bit. For once, Leo was speechless. Ever since his mom died, he'd spent his life on the run. Now he'd found a home and a family. He'd found a job to do. And as scary as it was, Leo wasn't tempted to run, not even a little. This is going to be really sappy and sentimental, but the way that Camp Half-Blood becomes a home for people who feel like they don't have a home anywhere else, like Leo or Percy or even Annabeth when she was a kid, that's exactly how I feel about these books in this series. And I think that that's why the fan base for the series is so strong, because this is really a series for... these are books for people who feel like they're on the outside, who feel like outcasts. Camp isn't just a home for the characters in this series. Camp is like a home to us as well. I'm going, Annabeth said. Jason, when you get the ship built, let me go with you. I was hoping you'd offer, Jason said. You of all people will need you. Wait, Leo frowned. I mean, that's cool with me and all, but why Annabeth of all people? Annabeth and Jason studied one another, and Jason knew she had put it together. She saw the dangerous truth. Hera said my coming here was an exchange of leaders, Jason said, a way for the two camps to learn of each other's existence. Yeah, Leo said, so? An exchange goes two ways, Jason said. When I got here, my memory was wiped. I didn't know who I was or where I belonged. Fortunately, you guys took me in and I found a new home. I know you're not my enemy, the Roman camp. They're not so friendly. You prove your worth quickly or you don't survive. They might not be so nice to him, and if they learn where he comes from, he's going to be in serious trouble. Him? Leo asked. What were you talking about? My boyfriend, Annabeth said grimly. He disappeared around the same time Jason appeared. If Jason came to Camp Half-Blood... Exactly, Jason agreed. Percy Jackson is at the other camp, and he probably doesn't even remember who he is. My heart just breaks for Annabeth more than anything. Okay, that's The Lost Hero done. I was actually really nervous about rereading this because in my head I always kind of think this book is worse than it is, and it's not. It just takes me a little while to get into because I'm used to Percy and Annabeth kind of being at the forefront of the series, and because they're my comfort characters, I really do miss them and I kind of grieve them, and it's hard for me to get as invested in a story when I'm just missing them. But I actually had a lot of fun with it. I think the fact that I took a break between The Last Olympian and reading Lost Hero really helped how I felt about this. I had a lot more fun with it than I was expecting to. If all goes to plan, then my Son of Neptune reading vlog will be up in a week's time as to when this goes up. So we'll do one video a week like I did with the first series. I'm very excited to start Son of Neptune because I love that one. Thank you very, very much for watching. I love you. Happy New Year, by the way, and I'll see you very soon. Mwah.